Hey everyone! One of the most useful features and powerful features in Excel is the formulas and functions feature. There's probably hundreds if not thousands of formula you can use in Excel, but I'm going to take you through 15 of the most useful basic formulas to get us started. I'm going to do this very quickly, so if you need to, just pause and rewind. And also, if you already know a formula and you want to skip ahead, feel free to do that also. So let's get straight into it. We've got a table of information here. It's basically a shop that's selling some products. We're going to use the formula to fill in this table and also answer a few questions. I'll also add this file to the description below if you want to go ahead and try it for yourself. So we'll get started with the addition formula. There's a couple of different ways of doing this. You can see in the table here we've got some products. We've got the price of the product and the tax of the product. So in column F, we want to get the total price, which is simply adding the two together. So the most basic way of doing this is equals. You always have to start a formula with equals or the equal sign. Equals 200 plus 50 equals 250. But if you want to do this with every single cell, it would be very annoying and it would take a long time. So there's another way you can do it is use the cell reference. So instead of equals 200 plus 50, I'm going to say equals the cell of D2. So you can either type in D2 or you can select the cell and press plus and the cell E2 and it equals 250. So what I can do now, rather than having to type that in every time, I can actually drag this cell down and copy it by grabbing the little dot in the right hand corner and dragging it down for every one. And you can see that formula has gone from D2 plus E2 to the next one, D3 plus E3. And there we go. That's the very first formula and the most basic you can use in Excel, which is the addition formula. So the next formula we'll check out is the subtraction formula. And you can see further along this table of the products, you can see that there's a quantity sold and also a quantity returned. So the final quantity is going to be how many you sold minus the ones that were returned back to the shops. So it's very similarly to the addition formula. We'll start off with equals and we'll keep using these cell references rather than typing in the values themselves. So we're going to get cell G2 and you can see the formula bar up here on the top minus cell H2 and press enter. And now we've got the final quantity being 2. And again, if you remember, if you drag that cell down from the bottom right hand corner, it'll copy that formula all the way down. Okay, so the third formula we're going to look at is the multiply formula. And again, it's very simple. How to work out column J is the total sales, which is basically the price of the product in column F multiplied by how many were sold in column I. So we'll start with equals F2, and there is no times or multiply icon. So in Excel, you have to use the asterisk. That represents multiply. So F2 asterisk I2, press enter, and we've got the total sales. I'll drag that cell down and you can see it's done that for each of the different products. The fourth formula is called the sum formula. It's actually very similar to the addition formula, but instead of selecting each individual cell, you can actually do a whole bunch very, very quickly. So instead of going and we'll do the example in column J, we're going to work out the total sales of the entire store. Instead of going equals J2 plus J3 plus J4 plus J5, you can imagine that is going to take a very long time, especially if your table is very big. So in this instance, we can actually use the sum function or sum formula. Equals sum, and this is where you start putting in some words that represent the formula or function, and it gives you some hints after there too. So it says number 1, number 2. So it's telling me select the cells that you want to sum. So I'm just going to simply highlight over the entire range of cells that I want to sum. You can see up here, sum J2 to J10, close the brackets and press enter. And now we have the total sum of all of the sales. And the next formula we'll look at is the divide formula. Very simple. Let's just say we see the store here has made a total of 38,000 and a little bit of sales. For example, let's say we have 3 owners. and we want to see how much of that 38,000 each of those three owners will receive. So we'll use the divide formula, equals J11, and the divide sign is the /. So divide by, we don't have a cell reference of 3, so we'll just type in the number 3, and that's your divide formula. And you can see that they're getting just under $13,000 each. So this is a good time to tell you that the formulas and functions that we are creating, they're all dynamic when you use those cell references. So for example, if we change the value of this T1 tablet from 200 to 300, the total sales and the overall sales will also change accordingly. So I'll type in 300 and press enter. And you can see that the value has changed to 700. So I'll change that back, and we'll start going into some more functions. Now functions are like the sum that we showed you before, with some words that explain what is going to be happening with the formula. So the next one we'll use is the max formula, and what we'll do is we'll find out what the maximum price is for any of the products that this shop sells. So equals max, open bracket. So it's asking you again to select the numbers you want to compare against. I'll select the cells from range D2 down to D10 and close the brackets. Press enter, and you can see the maximum value is 2,000. Very similarly, the minimum value is equals min, the min function. And again, we're going to select the same range of cells to get the cheapest product in the store. Close the brackets and press enter, and it's 200. Again, it's very dynamic. So if we change the value of that T1 tablet to say $1,000, it's not going to be the cheapest anymore. What is going to be the minimum value? And it's automatically changed, dynamically changed to 400, which is the cheapest value. We'll change that back to 200. Another useful function in Excel is the count function, where this example is probably not the greatest because it's such a small table, but it does really help when you've got some bigger tables. So what it does, it's going to count anything that has a number. And you can see on the fourth line, there's no quantity and no returns for the TX2, the discontinued product. So if we type in equals count, open bracket, and we'll highlight the range of cells that we want to count, and we'll do this for the quantity sold, which is in column G, G2 to G10, and close the brackets. You can see that the count has 8. So it actually counts how many cells have a number in them. So it's ignored that one with the blank. But if we change the blank to 0, it actually is going to count it because there's actually a value in there. So I'll just show you by putting a 0 into that cell G4, you'll see that the count result changes from 8 to 9. The count A function is a function that counts not just numbers but words. So for example, if I go back to this count function, and instead of typing G2 to G10, I want to count how many products we have in the shop. So I'm going to highlight B2 to B10 and close the brackets. Unfortunately, it's come up with 0 because it's actually representing numbers. It's saying there's no cells that we selected that have numbers in it. And that's why we're going to change that count formula to the count A formula, because count A actually counts anything, any cell that has anything in it, whether it's a number, a letter, or anything else. So we'll use the formula equals count A, open bracket, and it says value 1, value 2. So not number 1, number 2, anything. So we're going to highlight cells B2 to B10 and close the brackets, and you can see that there's 9 cells represented there. The next function we will check out is the if function. It's a very useful function in Excel, and you'll find yourself using it more and more the further you go with Excel. Now I do have some more complex examples in the description below. I'll put those videos there. But for this instance, we just want to fill up this table in column K with the tax status. And we want to indicate whether each product has tax or it's tax-free. And we're going to use the if function to do this. So we'll start in K2, equals if. First part is, what's the logical test? If E2 equals 0. So if the tax equals 0, comma, what do we want to bring back if that is true? We want to bring back the words tax free. And we put that in double quotation marks because that's what you have to do with text in Excel, comma. And what do we want to bring back if the value is false? I could bring in some other word like taxed or something like that, but I just want to bring in blank or nothing. So I'm just going to put in 2 double quotation marks. That's how you put in a blank. Close the brackets and press enter. And because that if statement was false, it's brought back the blank. If I drag that formula down, you can see that the formula has brought back the words tax-free in those situations where the tax is 0. So there you go, that's the if function. Okay, before I get on to the next formula, if you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel or click that like button. So we'll get on to the next function, which is the average function. And what I'll do is I'll get the average price of each of all the products. So I'm going to start with equals average, open bracket. I'm going to highlight the cells D2 to D10 and close the brackets. This is going to give me the average price of all of the products. And the average price is 933 and some cents. Now this brings me to the next formula, which is the round formula. We don't want to see 933.22222. We want to round it to the closest number of cents. So we'll start with equals round. And I'm going to select the cell H14, comma, and the second part of the function is the number of digits you want to round it to. So I want to round it to the 2 decimal points, and this always represents the number of decimal points, or the numbers after a decimal point. So close the bracket, and you can see that it's now rounded to 933.22. I'll show you again. If I want to round this to the nearest dollar, instead of 2 decimal points, I'm going to change this formula. You can see up in the formula bar up the top here, I'm just going to change that from a 2 to a 0, and it's going to round it to the closest 0 or dollar instead of decimal points. Again, I can go even further. If I want to round it to the closest $100, you probably guessed it, but instead of 0, I'm going to type in -2, and it's going to round it to the closest $100. Okay, so the next formula is pretty similar to the average formula, and that is the median formula. How that works is it goes through the products and it finds the middle product, or the middle priced product. So you can see here there's 9 products. The one right in the middle is 750, so that's what the median result is. Let's see how the formula works. Equals median, open brackets. I'm going to select everything I want to check against, D2 to D10 again. Close the brackets, and you can see the median result is 750, exactly what I thought it would be. Now finally we'll get to a couple of little bit more complex formula, but they are simple once you get used to them, which is the Countif and Sumif formula. So the first thing we want to do is use the Countif formula, and you'd use this, for example, if we want to count how many times that there was a returned quantity of 1. So you can see out of those return quantities, it looks like there was 3 where there's a return quantity of 1. So let's show you how this formula works. Equals count if, open brackets, and you can see there's 2 sections here, the range and the criteria. So the first part is the range. We're going to select this range of H2 to H10 and press comma, and the second part is the criteria. And the criteria we want to check is that it equals 1. So we're just going to type in the word 1, or the number 1. Close the brackets, press enter, and you can see that it's counted 3 times. So there's 3 times that there was a return quantity of 1. Okay, and the final function we'll look at is the sum if function, and it means exactly what it says. We're going to sum a bunch of cells if a condition is met. In this instance, we are going to sum the total sales of a product if it is a laptop. So let's get started with the formula. Equals sum if, open brackets. The range we are going to select from is this range from B2 to B10. Comma. The second part of the function is what's the criteria? Now the criteria is that it's a laptop. So we'll type in those double quotation marks, the laptop, comma, and what do we want to get back if that condition is met? Is we want to get the sum of this total sales from range J2 to J10. We'll close the brackets, and you can see the result is 32,000 and a little bit extra. Now the reason I typed laptop here is you can actually reference the cell rather than typing in the word laptop. So I'll go back into the formula bar, and instead of typing the word laptop up here, I'm going to delete that and reference the cell I18 where laptop is being typed. And I'll press enter. So there you go, it's 32,395. And what this shows is it is dynamic, just like all the other functions and formula I showed you. If I change this cell that it's referencing from laptop to tablet and press enter, you'll see that the Sumif value will change accordingly. And there you go. Well, hopefully those functions and formula got you started. They're really handy. And don't forget that I'm going to put the file in the description below, and also some links to some more formulas and functions if you want to continue your journey with Excel. See you next time.